Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and Happy New Year! 2023 is going to be a great year and I'm super excited to finally be back and sharing videos with you all. I decided to start this year off with a little creative adventure on updating my sewing machine. So this is my Janome 625E and I've had this domestic sewing machine for well over 10 years now. I've put it through hell. I generally sew probably quite a bit more than the average consumer of these types of machines. On like a low year of sewing, I probably go through about 2 kilometers of thread on like average, and that's not when I'm doing huge projects for my shop and cosplay stuff. So 10 years of wear and tear on this machine has really started to show. Like the presser foot does not lift very well, the bobbin's a little janky. Still sews great, which is why I chose this machine because it is a beast. But I've been wanting to get an industrial sewing machine for a really long time. And back when we were at the condo, it was really hard to justify the space and also the budget requirements for this type of machine. Now that we've moved into a bigger space and I don't really have that kind of requirement and I can kind of work out my studio around big tools that I need, the space requirement is gone. The budget's requirement is still quite prevalent and actually is quite a bit tighter now. So I decided, okay, well I can't buy a brand new one, let's look for a secondhand one. And a couple of months ago I came across a listing for 2 Juki machines, which the buyer wanted to sell both of them together, and it was a really common lock stitch machine and a slightly less common safety lock machine, which is kind of like a serger and a chain stitcher all in one. She wanted to sell both of them together, and it was only $500 for both machines, which I thought was a pretty good deal. And since then, I haven't really found many other deals that are that good as well. I figured, okay, this machine is pretty common. I can get all the replacement parts ordered. There's lots of instructions and manuals and whatnot to fix it if I need to fix it. So I figured, okay, let's do this. Let's get an industrial machine going and seeing if I can get it working for me. So this is my Juki DDL 555, and this is kind of the current state we're in. The machine actually works really well. Well, yeah, it does work really well. I just can't control it very easily. And I've been trying to troubleshoot what's going on with this machine. And I started originally with the pedal, and I was thinking, okay, this is the old original pedal, and the rods that connected to the motor, this one was actually bent at 45-degree angles. I've managed to straighten it a little, but there's a little bit of a kink still in there. But in any case, it did work a little, but it was still not quite there because I was thinking that maybe these old pieces, because they're really jagged, were getting stuck and whatnot. So I ordered a brand new pedal, and I ordered a new, I don't know what these are called, pivot bars, and then the extension for it as well, set everything up. That's actually why this machine is on 2x4 stumps, just so I can work underneath with the bolts. It makes it a lot easier. In any case, I connected everything and then proceeded to try and play with the motor. And you can kind of tell sometimes, I don't know if it'll do it this time, but when you pull it down, it sometimes gets stuck. Oh. Anyways, it'll get stuck in this position, so the machine will just keep going even though I've removed my foot. And it doesn't quite, it sticks quite a bit too when I try and push down on it. It's not very good and very sensitive. So you basically go from like 0 to like 4,000 stitches a minute instantly, and that of course rips the thread and doesn't do much for the fabric either. So I think what I'm going to do is replace this motor, because the solution to this sticky actuator problem, I think, is to clean out in here, because when I originally got this machine, it was disgusting. Like I actually went in here and fiddled with the covers and cleaned everything up and vacuumed. But I think whatever the flywheel or something I think it's called that's in here needs to be oiled and cleaned up a little bit, and I don't really want to take this motor apart. I've been considering replacing it to begin with anyway because it's really loud. So if you turn this on, let's see if I can get the... It's quite loud, and as you turn this on, if you turn it on, it will continually spin, which means it's always using energy, which means it's super inefficient. And when you turn it off, it still takes time to wind down. So it's not great for electrical use, and it's just giant and loud because the machine itself actually runs very quiet. The motor makes most of the noise. So in its place, I went out and got this guy. This is an electric brushless motor that is designed by Reliable Corp. There is a store here in Ontario, in Toronto, that they have. I've ordered it from them, and I also got this little doohickey. Let's see if I can open this. Can I do this one hand? Oh, haha. Okay, well, you can kind of sort of see it there. It's a little piece that basically attaches to the little wheel here, and it'll sit right here, and it will actually allow me to control the position of the needle with an up-down needle switch, and then also if I backpedal, it'll lift the needle in the opposite direction of where it's sitting. So if it's set down, I can backpedal and it'll lift the needle up, which is super handy. And one of the features I miss the most about my domestic machine versus this machine. So I'll be able to do that with this, and these are the controls for that needle up-down situation. And then the other great thing about this is it has a plug in the back, so I can plug the lamp into this motor, and then I can just control everything with one power button. The previous owners tried to do that with this sketchy setup, where they basically took a wire and directly wired it into the power control, and then this wire used to be wrapped around the plug for this lamp, which is super not safe and kind of ghetto. So we're gonna fix all that. And then the last thing is I kind of want to update the look of this machine. I had originally kind of thought about painting this metal, but I think it's going to be more hassle than it's worth. So I'm going to leave it as is. Kind of gives it a bit more character, I guess, with all the worn out bits. But I am going to replace this tabletop because it is ugly and I hate it. And I think I'm going to paint the legs and the pedal and everything to be like a nice wrought iron kind of color. And I think what I'm going to do is do a wood top for this, because I think it'll look much nicer and just be more, like more pleasant to work on. So we'll see how that gets along. I think it should be pretty easy because all I have to do is cut a little channel here for the belt and then a big giant rectangle for the oil pan, and I can just copy the pattern off this table for the new tabletop. So I don't know, we'll see. Hopefully it'll be fine. But yeah, I think that's the plan for this, and I'm pretty confident that this motor will solve my problems with the actual machine, because everything else in here works fine. It's definitely been a little damaged with, you know, pieces a little bit wobbly, but the internal mechanics work perfectly well. It's very smooth. I've cleaned it and oiled it, and it should last another 100 years. So we just gotta update it a little bit, and we'll have a fancy new machine, hopefully. Alright, I am pretty sure that I have some wood stashed away that I can use for this project. When we first moved, we got a couple sheets of plywood because I figured we'd probably need some stuff to make furniture. And I have 3/4 inch ply left over. Pretty sure it's in the shed, so let's go find out. Wood. Do we have wood? Oh. Okay. Well, oh, there it is. I can see plywood there, but it is hella buried. So I guess I'm gonna have to clean the shed first to get at my 3/4 inch ply, but we'll get there. It's okay. After struggling in the shed a little, I managed to pull out the scrap pieces that I wanted and moved on to freeing the machine from the clutches of its awful green tabletop. Okay, well, that's my industrial sewing machine, all in pieces. I've got a little bucket of all the bit bobs that are small that I want to keep, the giant motor that weighs an epic amount, but I did manage to get it off. I'm gonna save it because it does still work. I might use it for something else, I don't know. It's good for parts, might as well keep it around since it works. And yeah, we've got the oil pan and the machine, and I gotta figure out how to create these little insets. I don't have a router, so this is going to be a little tricky, but I think with some spade drill bits and a little bit of chiseling, I can probably get the same pattern out for the oil pan, and then this cutout's not a problem. So yeah, I'm going to go trace out this pattern and get started. Before working on the tabletop, I decided to start by painting the legs just to get something simple off of my to-do list and let the legs dry while I worked on the other pieces. The scraps that I had pulled out of the shed, I ended up laminating together with wood glue and setting overnight with clamps, just so I could have a nice extra thick tabletop that would be really sturdy for the machine. I decided that I wanted a 4-foot by 2-foot tabletop, so I ended up trimming off the edges off both sides of the tabletop to make a nice clean edge. You can see here that the original tabletop is a little bit thinner than what I made, and this is so I could use more space for working on slightly larger projects. I made sure to align the front edge of my tabletop so that the machine would still sit in the correct spot when I was sitting at the table. To cut out the shape, I ended up mostly using my jigsaw and just slowly followed along the shape that I had traced out. In a couple of spots where my jigsaw blade couldn't get in, I used a drill to round out the tight corners. Once that was done, I fit the oil pan back into place and then traced out the little extra bits that I need to round out and chisel away to make it fit perfectly flush. For the bigger curved shapes, I used my spade drill bits to cut out most of the material and then used some hand chisels and a hammer to get out the rest of the stuff that I couldn't get in between. To clean up the tabletop and make it look a bit more professional, I ended up using some cheap iron-on edge banding that I had lying around. The problem with it though is it was a little bit thin, but I just used 2 strips side by side and that did the trick pretty well. Finally, a bit of polyacrylic to seal and protect the wood, and my new tabletop was done. All right, and magically everything's back together. It was actually really easy to put all this together. So the table legs I didn't take apart when I painted. I just left them as is. And then the tabletop I just positioned on top in a new position that I like. The original tabletop you can see on my overlock machine, the edge of the table actually comes right to the edge of the leg, which means that the other leg is in like a weird position when you sit on and sew at the machine. So with this one I actually recentered the legs a little bit better under the tabletop, so it gives me a bit more space to sit, which means I can move the pedal over, so I don't have as much problems now with how I sit at the machine, which is awesome. And then yeah, it was pretty easy to put back. I just put all the little rubber stoppers back. You can see the detailing isn't super great, especially around this one here. There's a little bit of a gap because I didn't have the right bit, but I'm gonna get some black silicone and fill this in and it'll be no problem. Machine works really nice. Everything's all back together. Can I do this with one hand? Yeah. Oop, nope, can't do this with one hand, but this lifts back up nicely on the hinges, and I put the bobbin winder mechanism back in place. The way I just put this was I basically just put it forward against the belt and then put the screws in, and then I can position it tighter or looser as I need it. So it's super easy here. And then the actual motor is all installed as well, and that was really straightforward as well. I basically just hooked the belt onto the motor and then held it in position to where it was tight enough, and then I added the, let's see if I can get a better You can kind of say, yeah, there we go. Then I added the bolts in. There's 3 here, drilled them through, mounted this whole thing. It's really light, so it's very easy to lift and position. And then there is a tilting mechanism right here. That bolt there. Let's see if we can sort of kind of get a better shot of it, maybe. Right there, this little bolt here, that's actually to tighten your belt. So when I originally positioned this, it was still pretty loose. So I just loosened it and shifted the motor until it was a tightness that was good enough for my machine. And that's basically it. And you're good to go. And it's all plugged in. So quiet. Completely super quiet. And I have so much control on this machine now. It's amazing. So it's just like the slightest touch. I've got perfect control. I can go up and down like instantly, very easily with like just a tiny flex of my ankle, and then go as fast as I want, go as slow as I want. It's amazing. And it's so quiet. Oh, this is like night and day. This is amazing. I've actually set the speed to be a maximum 1400 stitches, I think, on this, just because that's the speed I'm comfortable with. This thing goes up to 4000, but that's too fast. So yeah, the only thing I have left is now to figure out where to install the synchronizer. So I'm gonna fiddle with that for a bit. It's supposed to go on this nut here, and then you gotta fish the cable through. So yeah, that's it. I gotta fiddle with this. I don't have back pedal capability. So normally for the synchronizer to get the needle back up, or at least not this one, but synchronizers in general, to get the needle to go back up, you push backwards on the pedal and it'll send a signal to go up one step. I can't do that with this motor because there is this bolt right here, prevents me from actually hitting backwards. So I suspect I might need to loosen this to let the pedal come back, because there is a little bit of a gap there. I'm not 100% sure. I gotta look this up and figure out what to do with it. But even if I don't have back pedal capability, just having needle up down would be fantastic. So let's get working on that. Now we have a synchronizer. This is pretty awesome. So I have it in needle down because that's the most useful for me. And then when I go, always ends up in needle down, which is awesome. Now with this synchronizer, so it comes with a couple of accessories. It's got this little metal bar that it slides into this little plastic support system. And they also give you this metal bar. And normally for Jukis, you would actually take this bar and stick it on the back here. You would take out these 2 screws and stick it on the back, and then you'd have to bend it a little bit so it slots in like this to support. But this bar is a little bit too short for my Juki machine, so I won't actually be able to get both screws into it if I use it. So I'm actually just going to use the support system they give you without this metal piece. It just holds it up top there, so it just has something to sit on. I might 3D print something to just slot in here to hold this in place a little better, but honestly, like even with just a bit of tape is fine. It's just so like that this system has something to sit on, so it's not just dangling off the shaft there. And with this, you can actually see it's a little wobbly. It's got like an ever so slight kind of wobble to it there. And that's because the shank that, the little extension shank thing that they give you, you have to have it perfectly centered on the actual machine's shank. And I can't get it centered on mine for whatever reason. I can't figure out how to get it perfectly centered. Maybe it's just my actual machine has a slightly crooked shank, which is entirely possible because this thing is like 1 billion years old. But I don't think it actually affects the functionality at all. It's just a little wobbly. Which, yeah, it's fine. As long as I get my needle up and down is kind of the goal here, so that's pretty awesome. I didn't find any information about being able to pedal backwards to get the foot up, because the motor doesn't seem to have any information on it, so I'm actually going to email them and see what they tell me. Otherwise, I'll just use the hand wheel to move the needle up when I need to put stuff in. That's totally fine. So yeah, that was pretty easy. It's just, you know, plug and play essentially. I'm going to tidy up this cord a little bit. Just kind of probably stick it down here, but that's it. It's up and running and has all the fun functions. I'm so excited to actually finally use this. Yay! So what do we think of the project? I am so happy with how this turned out. I feel like there's just like a whole new experience at sewing at this machine. The tabletop and the kind of color that I chose for the legs give it this like old treadle machine vibe almost. And I love the mechanical noises. I get like so many cozy vibes from listening to the mechanical clicking noises when I'm working on projects on this machine. I'll definitely be upgrading my other Juki that I have as well, but that machine requires a lot more work to get it running correctly. It runs, but there's quite a few things that aren't quite right with it that I need to work on upgrading and sourcing parts for. So that's a whole other project that I've kind of been procrastinating on because it's a bit more work. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the transformation and if you've ever wanted to play around with an industrial sewing machine yourself. As always, thanks for dropping by, and I'll see you on the next creative adventure.